Well, miracle on the ABC's Media Watch as host Paul Barry seems to side with my colleague Peter Credlin on the Uluru Statement from the Heart's length after her posts were slapped with a false label on Facebook. Have a look at what Paul Barry had to say last night.
The Uluru Statement is expressed on one page, but there are many more pages of notes and background, which it must be said the Australian public are not voting on, where matters like a treaty and reparations are raised. So, should Facebook have labelled her claim false? A spokesperson for Meta told Media Watch it wasn't us.
This fact check was applied by an independent fact checker and not Meta.
And that is true, but it was Meta that slapped it on. And given that there may be some point in what Credlin is saying, we think a disputed label would be more appropriate.
Wow, there you go. It's what we've been saying on this program, that Peter Credlin was right to say that the supporting documents on the Uluru Statement from the Heart run more than one page. It's a point that co-author of the Uluru Statement, Megan Davis, has made repeatedly as well. We showed you another comment from her last night. Now, all of this happened after Anthony Albanese repeatedly called this claim that the Uluru Statement was longer than one page a conspiracy. Have a look.
This is a ripper. That is the Uluru Statement from the Heart on an A4 bit of paper. Nothing exposes the falseness of the arguments being put by the No campaign than this conspiracy theory and nonsense. Something that has been out there, like a whole lot of the QAnon theories. We have all sorts of conspiracy stuff out there. That is a conspiracy in search of a theory, Mr. Speaker. They're struggling to get their scares straight. I mean, what role did Marcia Langton play in the faking of the moon landing, Mr. Speaker?
And Megan Davis has repeatedly said, and in the comments that I played you last night, she said it's a one-page painting, that's what she called it, a painting that was signed by the Uluru authors, but the supporting documents, she says, run to 18 pages. And as I've been saying in this program, at the very least, this is a contested political point that shouldn't be censored by Facebook. Well, to discuss this, let's bring in tonight's panel. Sky News host Liz Story here in Sydney. Great to see you, Liz.
Cheers. And
Executive Director of the St Vincent de Paul Society, Sam Crosby. Great to have you with us, Sam, as always. Now, Sam, starting with you, look, this clearly isn't a conspiracy. I mean, Paul Barry doesn't always get it right, but on this, look, he's siding with Peter Credlin here and saying it's not a conspiracy, it shouldn't be censored, and at the very least it should have a disputed claim on it.
Oh, look, possibly. I mean, who knows? I don't want to have a semantic argument. I would say, however, whether it's false or disputed or this or that, it's incredibly disingenuous. Incredibly disingenuous. I mean, Peter Credlin is a world-class political operator. She is absolutely one of the best, and she knew exactly what she's doing by trying to present The Voice as being some huge, long document that no one quite understands and no one has ever read through the whole thing of. I mean, they're supplementary notes. You know, they're supplementary notes. She knows exactly what she's doing. So let's not, get messed around in the weeds with this thing. Let's talk about the actual substance of the issue.
Well, look, Liz, and of course, we're presenting both sides of the yes and the no case here on Sky News. But I think on this point, the point is that Peter Credlin's content, and she's with the no side, but that it was labelled misinformation, it was labelled false, it was censored by Facebook. And both sides deserve to be heard. This is a referendum. People need to hear both sides.
Exactly. And this came to light in such a way that we had to put in an FOI to get that information, which immediately made it suspicious, i.e. why isn't this on the website? There's an Uluru Statement of the Heart website. You'd think they'd attach these if there's nothing to hide, etc. and so on.
Apologies for interrupting, but most of the document is actually available on the website, but there are parts of it that were only in the Freedom of Information version, which was the reference to whether a portion of GDP would be spent in reparations.
Which is an incredibly important part when we're also being told by the government who's pushing this, their pet project, I like to call it, telling us that, you know, it will have very little effect on people's everyday lives, etc. and so on. It's going to be very limited power-wise, etc. and so on. A small detail like that is actually quite big and would change some people's votes because they know what it's alluding to, and the fact that it's going to be quite an expensive project indeed in the event that it got up. The fact that we've now seen big tech step in, and yes, Meta are hiding behind some independent, nameless fact checker. We've seen them do this in the past around election times, specifically over the last 3 years during pandemic era. They've been exposed as doing quite a lot of their own fact checking and eliminating information off the interwebs that they didn't want people privy to. This seems to be another example of that.
Yeah, it's very worrying.